My name is Isla Warren. I'm 29 years old. And if you think you've seen betrayal before, wait until you hear mine. That night, my hands were trembling so hard I thought the silverware would rattle off the table. My sister smirked, tilting her wine glass like she was queen of the world. Mom leaned forward, lips curling, and said it loud enough for everyone at Christmas dinner to hear. The garage is ready for you. The room burst into laughter. Everyone, even the little cousins who didn't understand, giggled because the adults did. The garage. My room. My punishment for being the daughter who didn't shine, the one who never fit into their golden narrative. My sister's empire, her glamorous business, her perfect boss, her sparkling image, was the crown jewel they worshipped. And me? I was the punchline. I swallowed the fire in my throat, blinking back the humiliation. But I didn't argue. Not anymore. Because the thing they didn't know, the thing that made my pulse thunder beneath my skin, was that I had been hiding something far bigger than their secrets, bigger than their laughter. 5 years of silence. 5 years of building in the shadows. 5 years of watching while they told me I was nothing, all while I quietly stitched together an empire of my own. And as my sister basked in the attention, her boss, seated proudly at the end of the table, raised a toast to her brilliance. He didn't know that his phone was about to explode with messages. He didn't know the mysterious CEO he'd been desperately trying to impress was sitting 3 chairs away, wearing the same smile he thought belonged to a failure. I gripped my glass tighter. The rage melted into something sharper, colder. Because tonight, at exactly 8:45 p.m., Christmas would never mean the same thing again. The air in the dining room felt heavy, every laugh echoing like nails against glass. My sister, Charlotte, batted her lashes and leaned into her boss's attention. Her empire, they called it, but what no one here knew was that her empire wasn't hers. Not entirely. The man sitting at the head of the table, Mr. Ellison, thought he was mentoring a bright young star. He thought Charlotte had built her brand from the ground up. But the paperwork, the patents, the silent investments, all of that had flowed through me. Through names they didn't recognize, companies I had layered like armor. The phone buzzed once. Then again. Mr. Ellison's smile faltered. He tried to ignore it, lifting his glass, but then the buzzing turned into a steady vibration against the polished oak. Finally, he glanced down. The blood drained from his face. Across the table, Charlotte reached for his arm. "Is everything okay?"
His jaw tightened.
"Who is this?" he barked, standing so fast his chair screeched against the wood. Every set of eyes in that room snapped toward him. "Who's who?" she stammered. He held the screen like it was poison. "The CEO, the real CEO, just introduced themselves. Said they own the contracts, the shares, the foundation of everything we've been building. They have proof." A silence fell so sharp I could hear the hum of the chandelier. I kept my smile soft, almost polite, as though I hadn't planned every second of this reveal. My fingers brushed the edge of my phone beneath the table, where a single scheduled email had detonated across every inbox connected to her company. Charlotte's face turned pale, her confident smirk twisting into panic. But me? I simply took a sip of water and asked, calm as ice, "Still think the garage is ready for me?" Charlotte's fork clattered onto her plate. The sound was sharp, final, like a gavel announcing the end of her charade. "Teach, this is a mistake," she stuttered, her voice trembling. "I'm the CEO. Everyone knows that. This is just some hacker trying to—" But Mr. Ellison cut her off, his voice thunderous. "Hacker? Then explain these documents." He slammed his phone down onto the table, the screen glowing with contracts, registrations, and shareholder agreements. All watermarked. All verified. All signed. Not by her name. By mine. The color drained from her face as recognition flickered in her eyes. Mom shifted uncomfortably, darting a nervous glance my way. "Sweetheart," she whispered to Charlotte. Just explain it. Tell them it's a misunderstanding." But it wasn't. It had been 5 long years of letting her parade around in borrowed feathers, stealing credit for ideas she hadn't birthed, acting like I was the embarrassment while she basked in applause. They laughed at me for living small, for staying invisible. They thought invisibility meant weakness. They didn't realize it was strategy. Charlotte reached for her boss's wrist. "Please, you have to listen." He yanked his hand away, venom in his eyes. "I invested millions because of you. Because I believed in you. And now I find out you're nothing but a front? Do you have any idea what this means for me?" Charlotte's mouth opened, but no words came out. I leaned back, folding my arms, watching her crumble beneath the weight of the truth she'd never prepared for. Finally, I spoke, softly, but with enough bite to slice through the silence. "Don't worry, Charlotte. Christmas is about giving. I just gave you the gift of reality." Her eyes widened, horror dawning as the laughter at the table shifted, not toward me this time, but toward her. And that was only the beginning. The laughter around the table wasn't warm anymore. It was jagged, sharp, the kind that slices through pride and leaves nothing but humiliation behind. Charlotte's boss stood so abruptly his chair toppled, the legs scraping the floor like nails on glass. "Do you realize the legal implications?" he spat, pointing a trembling finger at her. "Fraud. Misrepresentation. Investors will demand their money back. This could ruin me." Charlotte stammered, her voice cracking. "It wasn't fraud, it was just a way to help my sister. I was the face, but she stopped herself, glancing at me. For the first time, she seemed to remember I wasn't her shadow anymore. I tilted my head, meeting her stare with cold calm. "Go on. Tell them who really built it. Tell them whose name has been on every patent, every agreement, every sleepless night's worth of work." Her lips quivered, but nothing came out. Mom finally snapped, slamming her hand on the table. "Enough of this. This is family business. You don't drag outsiders into it. Whatever you think you've done, whatever stunt this is, stop it now." But Mr. Ellison wasn't listening. He was already dialing his phone, his face pale with panic. "Get legal on this. Now," he barked into the receiver. His eyes flicked back at Charlotte with disgust. The room had shifted. My parents' mocking smiles were gone, replaced by nervous whispers. Cousins and aunts who once sneered at me were suddenly quiet, their forks abandoned. Charlotte tried to reach for me again, desperation painting her face. "Please," she whispered. "We can fix this. We can." I leaned closer, my voice like ice. "You had 5 years to fix it. 5 years of pretending I didn't exist. Tell me, Charlotte, what does it feel like to watch your empire crumble on the night you thought you'd won?" Her face collapsed into her hands. And in that silence, with the world finally seeing her truth, I realized this wasn't revenge. This was balance. Charlotte didn't eat another bite. Her fork lay abandoned, her perfectly curated smile gone, mascara bleeding into the corners of her eyes. The woman who strutted through every room like a queen now looked like a child who'd been caught stealing. Dad tried to salvage the evening, his tone falsely steady. "We'll handle this as a family. No one here needs to know the dirty details." But he forgot one thing. The world was already watching. Because at 6:15 p.m., when Charlotte's boss's phone buzzed with urgent, so did half the board members. Screens lit up across the city. Articles, leaked documents, proof of every lie she had spun. And when her boss's face drained white, the others noticed. They leaned in, phones in hand, murmuring, "Is this true? How long? Does she even own any of it?" Charlotte's hands trembled as she reached for her glass of wine, but the stem slipped, crashing to the floor. Red spread across the tablecloth like blood. Mom hissed, "Pick it up." But Charlotte froze. Her empire was dissolving faster than that spill. Then the doorbell rang. Every head turned. Dad rose, muttering, "Not now." But when he opened the door, the cold air carried in 2 men in suits, one carrying a leather folder, the other flashing credentials. "Charlotte Green?" one asked firmly. Charlotte's eyes widened. "That's me." "You've been served," he said, placing the folder into her shaking hands. "Court summons. Intellectual property dispute. Fraud investigation pending." The silence was deafening. You could hear the faint crackle of the fireplace as Charlotte's world went up in flames. I sat back, calm, watching it unfold. Charlotte's boss didn't wait for explanations. He adjusted his jacket, sneered, and said, "You're finished." Then he left without looking back. And I thought to myself, this wasn't even the climax. This was just the overture. Charlotte's screams followed the men out the door. "This isn't real. This is a setup." Her voice cracked, brittle, desperation dripping through every syllable. But the summons in her trembling hands told a different story. The signatures, the evidence, the official stamp of a court she could not charm or manipulate. Mom leapt to her defense, slamming her fist against the table. "This is an attack on our family. Whoever's behind this will regret it." I tilted my head, sipping my wine slowly. Maybe it isn't an attack. Maybe it's accountability. The room spun to face me. Dad's brows furrowed. "What do you know about this?" I let a small smile curl across my lips, the kind that doesn't offer comfort, only questions. "All I know is, empires built on lies don't last forever." Charlotte lunged forward, eyes red, makeup smeared. "You think you're better than me? You, the embarrassment, the failure who lives in my shadow? You'll regret this." But as she spoke, her phone buzzed relentlessly. She finally snatched it up, and her scream pierced the air. Because the headlines were everywhere now. Famed fashion icon's business under federal investigation. Exclusive, Charlotte Green's fraudulent empire exposed. Her brand's social media was swarmed with comments. Fraud. Liar. Where did all the money go? The carefully curated image she'd built for 5 years crumbled in less than 5 minutes. Mom grabbed the phone, scrolling frantically. Her face fell pale. Dad sat down heavily, hands pressed against his temples. And me? I stayed silent.
Calm.
Watching as the family that had mocked me, minimized me, laughed at me just hours ago began to unravel before my eyes. The perfect Christmas dinner turned into a funeral for Charlotte's empire. But the real surprise was yet to come. Because at exactly 11:45 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message I had been waiting for all week. 3 words glowed on the screen, sealing everything I'd set in motion. "It's all done." The family's chatter had dissolved into whispers, then into silence. The only sound now was Charlotte's shallow breathing as she scrolled through notification after notification, partnerships dissolving, sponsors withdrawing, her face plastered on every outlet for all the wrong reasons. At 11:50 p.m., the front doorbell rang. Dad snapped, "Don't answer it," but it was too late. The butler opened the door, and in walked 3 men in immaculate suits. Their presence carried the weight of inevitability. "Miss Charlotte Green?" one asked, holding out a folder. "Federal auditors. We'll need to discuss certain discrepancies in your company's accounts." Charlotte stammered, You can't just barge in on Christmas Eve. This is harassment." The lead agent arched a brow. "Fraud doesn't take holidays." The air cracked with tension. Mom tried to intervene, shielding Charlotte with her arms, but they brushed past her with practiced indifference. Dad rose to his feet, blustering. "Do you know who we are? Do you know who you're humiliating?" One of the agents turned just enough to meet his eyes. "Yes, sir. We know exactly who you are. That's why we're here." The room froze. Charlotte crumbled onto the floor, mascara streaking like war paint. She grabbed at Mom's dress, sobbing. "Make them stop. Do something." But there was nothing left to do. The empire was gone. The lies were public. And with every passing second, her downfall was broadcast to the world. Dad turned toward me then, his face shadowed, voice trembling in a way I'd never heard before. Did you have something to do with this?" I didn't flinch. I leaned back in my chair, swirling the last of the wine in my glass. Funny thing about truth, it doesn't need my help to destroy someone. It just needs a little light. Charlotte shrieked, "You set this up. You destroyed me." Her finger pointed like a dagger, but the weight of her own guilt dragged her voice into hysteria. The agents began ushering her toward the door, her cries echoing through the house like the final chords of a broken symphony. The laughter that once mocked me was gone, replaced by dread, regret, silence thick enough to suffocate. And as the clock struck midnight, the first moments of Christmas arrived, not with carols, not with gifts, but with the sound of my sister's empire shattering into dust. But my revenge wasn't complete yet, because tomorrow morning, when the sun rose, they would learn the truth about me. Christmas morning dawned not with joy, but with silence heavy as stone. The dining room was still a battlefield of broken glass, wine-stained linens, and the echo of Charlotte's screams. My parents sat in the living room, pale and hollow, avoiding each other's eyes. At 7 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, the message was short, sharp, undeniable. Transfer complete. I stood, smoothed my dress, and stepped into the room where my family huddled like refugees of their own making. Dad's voice cracked. What did you do?" I met his gaze, unflinching. "Do you remember last night? When you laughed at me, called me useless, mocked me for being nothing?" I leaned closer, my words slow, deliberate. "That garage you offered? That humiliation you thought I'd swallow? It was built on the company I created, the one you erased me from." Mom gasped, shaking her head.
No.
"No, you're lying." But I pulled out my phone and opened the live stream. Tens of thousands were watching as an official press release rolled across the screen. New CEO revealed. Alyssa Carter reclaims green innovations. Charlotte's face flashed next to mine. One caption beneath it read, "The liar. The fraud. The sister dethroned." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad staggered back like he'd been struck. I spoke softly, the words cutting sharper than any scream. "You spent years calling me nothing. But today the world knows who I am. And who she isn't." The silence was deafening. Charlotte's empire wasn't just gone. It was mine again. Every patent, every partnership, every dollar tied to her name had been restored to its rightful place. And her downfall was written not in whispers, but in headlines. I turned toward the door, my voice steady, final. This Christmas, I didn't need gifts. I just needed justice. And without looking back, I left them the ruins of their own cruelty, walking into the morning light, free at last.